Another Studebaker update. I showed you in the last one that I had the heat halfway installed. So I got the wires ran up to the switch. Over there, I'm going to clean it all up. And same with this wire too. That's the power wire, it's fused. I just have it shoved in there, but I'm going to clean up all this like I said I was going to. I'm going to get a ground distribution block and a power distribution block, and so I just don't have wires looped around everywhere. I think when I installed the cigarette lighter outlet, I think that's drawing power, because ever since then the battery hasn't been maintaining a charge. I had to jump start it every time since then. So I think I'm going to check into my wiring on that outlet, which is kind of weird because I did 4 other relays there, didn't have a problem. So maybe I think what I did was I put the power to the relay and the switched power together. So I think I have to put the switch power to a distribution block, and I should take care of it, and I won't have my battery dying every day on me. So that's part of that update. You can see the rear still sitting low. I might have to wait a couple weeks now until I can afford it for spacers and spindles, the drop spindles, because I had to put a $170 starter in my 2500 HD. Screwed up thing is I have extra starters here. This is the one that came out of the truck that's no good. I want to take it out. The stud here broke, like they all do, because it's just a M8 or a machine screw size 8, and then this is the power, and just snapped right off there. I had another starter that I took as core that didn't work. It took as a core charge. This is another one that the stud took a shit on, and I tried soldering a big blob on there, and I tried doing that for the Studebaker, but that didn't work. I did something similar to this, but I was able to put a little stud in there, and it has just like a little bit of a thread on the Studebaker. It's enough with a blue Loctite and everything that it'll stay tight, but it's got a wire, so instead of like disconnecting the stud, I would have to unplug it. I put a plug in line for it, and then you would just take this main power stud off that truck. What I think I'm going to do is order a solenoid, see if I can't get this starter to work. I think the solenoids are like $18 I found on Amazon, so if I get this starter to work, maybe I'll order this will be a backup starter. Order a second solenoid for this truck, so I could change that eventually, because it's a little monkeyed up and I don't like that. So that's in the plans. Clean up the wiring, clean up everything else. Heat works phenomenal. It's 5 degrees outside and negative 10 degree wind chill, and the truck was maintaining heat in cab. Temperature, it was hard to hold temperature in the motor. The electric fan wouldn't even kick on. It was between like 195 and 199. Electric fan kicks on at 200, and sitting in the truck, all the metal is warm. All this stuff would be normally freezing. The switches, the steering wheel, everything was warm. I was wearing just a thin sweatshirt, and I was staying warm inside the truck. I sat in there for like 20 minutes outside, just letting the truck idle, and it was great. The only thing I think I would like differently is if I could split the heat, half of it to the passenger, half of it to the driver. But they do sell a kit like that. You can do ducting, but I'm not worried about that. I'm not too fancy about it, you know. I'll just rock it how it is. I want to get some weather strip around the doors. I gotta put some sealer around the steering column. You can see this is all open. Let me shine my light. You can see that. I'm gonna put like rubber around that, take care of that, and put the bead of. This is still not even dry. It's so cold. It's just absolutely freezing outside, but this is still gooey. It's trying to dry, but it's not quite there yet. Alright, I'm back here working on this thing. It's a little smoky. I just had the angle grinder cutting through some rubber. But if you remember, I had a square tube section that goes from the top of the frame across and it holds the cab mounts up. Recently I lowered the truck 4 inches and this has caused some problems. I went to pull out of the driveway and you can see the drive shaft was just tapping it. You can see it in the paint. So the angle grinder cut one side out. I have about 2 fingers gap distance between, so inch distance maybe, I don't know. But this is part of the cab mount on the other side, and cut that out. Here's part of the hockey puck. I guess it's rubber, but that's way up higher. But just to clearance everything, the truck's still solid, so I can grab a flashlight, show you underneath the truck what I did, and then I'll show you my other problem. Okay, so we're under the truck. Let me try and show you. Okay, this is where it went across. The gas tank's right up against this. Draft shaft is here, and it was just tapping. It was really close. When it's on the ground, it's had maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch clearance, so cleared that out of there. This side's fine. This side looks a little bit closer, but when you put a straight edge against the drive shaft and put it straight up, it's got pretty decent distance there, so I did that. Drive shaft's tight down there. What I'm going to do, I can't do on this side, so I'm not sure, but this side, I'm going to end up gusseting from the frame to up here with some 3/16 plate, like make like a triangulated bracket kind of thing, or I'll take another square tube and run it from here, put like 45s on it, and weld it there, just to straighten it up, and toughen it up a little bit. So now that the axle went up, the drive shaft went in, and I had like 1.5 to 2 inches of travel in the yoke. So when it was at ride height, it had about 1.5 inch clearance in there. The yoke itself is long as hell. It's about 8 inches, maybe a little longer. So now, ideally, because it's hard to get the drive shaft in and out, just that little bit of slip that it has before it bottoms out, I'm going to call the drive shaft shops on Monday, the one that did my shaft originally. I'll see if they'll want to shorten it. There's another place I know of. Maybe they might be a little bit cheaper. I don't want to spend too much money on this. This is really didn't account for any of this, so I may have to have the drive shaft shortened, ideally 2 inches. I think it'd be best to shorten it too, because if I put any kind of weight on the back of this and it makes the body go down, which means the axle comes up, that means the drive shaft's probably going to end up bottoming it out, and that could hurt something. So I'm going to have to figure something out with that. And yeah, it's kind of got me a little mad about that, but I'm going to gusset that and that cross member, clean it up a little bit, figure out something. I'll let you know what goes on with the drive shaft. Hopefully I put it back in, so now the truck's usable again. I could drive it, this and that. Wiring, I'm going to pop the hood off here probably tonight, and gonna clean up that wiring. I think I showed some of this. This came, nice ground block, I got it off of Amazon. When I mount this somewhere, this is going to be all my ground, so this is going to go to the battery, or I have another grounding point. I could even go off the motor, and then the motor goes to the battery. But all my grounds came with all these connectors, so I'm going to use these ring terminals and just ground everything there. Remember, I was buying inline fuse holders. I think I have 4 of them on there. So instead of that, this will be one central spot, in and out. And then for the relays that are fused, I'm going to have key on power to this, and then the key on from the key switch will turn the fuse panel on. So this will get power on one side, and this will be the output to relay or whatever else needs to be key on. So like the fuel pump will go to this, because what I'm running into now is off the key switch on the left there, I don't have enough threads to keep sticking key on, like terminals for key on, and then I have wires tapped into those wires just so they'd get key on power, and that's what's causing some of this jumble of mess. And then all my battery constants are here, so I'm going to take those out of there. And the constants have their inline fuse, so I'll use this for that. You could see, for example, like you follow some of these wires. Well, here's one. This is going into there, and then there's inline fuse there, and then these are the headlights, and then they're going into there. So this will get progressively shorter, and then I might get some loom. This is for the heater. I still have to mount that once I get the hood off and everything. But I'll loom all this, hopefully, and make it nice and clean looking, because this is starting to bother me. And here's something else I found. I have a VIN number plate for the truck. It's not very legible, so in case there was ever a problem, which I doubt there will be, I'm going to buy a punch set, and I'm going to punch the serial number into this, and then probably rivet it into the floor where it was originally supposed to go. And this was $20 on eBay, so this is a decent little find too, so that's another upcoming project.